Welcome to Philosophy 301 Ethics. My name is Ryan Pollock, and I will be your instructor for this course. In this first video, I will cover some of the basic things you need to know about the class. This will include where to find the syllabus and how to use the course schedule, what we will learn about in this class, the learning format, how material will be covered, and the various assignments that you will be required to complete. Now, before we begin, there is one preliminary point that I need to make about this video. The video you are about to watch was originally made with the syllabus and Moodle page for a section of this class that was designed to be taught in the fall of 2022. This means that if you are not taking this class in the fall of 2022, then some of the specific information you will see on the syllabus and course page, such as the dates of the class and the due dates for the assignments, may not apply specifically to you. However, all the general explanations I give in this video about how this class will run and how it will function will still apply to your particular section of the class. In order to find out the precise information that applies to your specific section, you should consult the syllabus that is posted to our course Moodle page. To get started, you will first need to know how to locate the syllabus. You can find the syllabus in the area of our Moodle page entitled Course Information and Resources. The syllabus for our class will be the first document listed here, along with the response paper guidelines and the final exam study guide. My focus in this video will largely be to cover the material contained in the syllabus. You can see at the top of the first page of the syllabus that I've listed my contact information. Before I get into the specifics of how to contact me, I first do want to say that I understand there are various challenges associated with online learning. Chief among these is that it can be easy to feel alienated from the course, your instructor, and your other peer students in the class. For this reason, I want to emphasize that there is a real flesh and blood person teaching this class, namely me, and that I will be present in the course and want to make myself available to address any concerns you may have. So if you have questions about anything at any time during this class, then the best way to get in touch with me is through email. You can see that my listed email address is ryan.pollock@uprovidence.edu. In addition, I am also available for virtual office hour meetings. If you would like to meet with me, then please first send me an email and we can arrange a time. Following this, we can meet through the Collaborate online meeting room. And once we've established a time to meet, I will set up a meeting room using this tool. In order to find Collaborate, simply scroll down in the Course Information and Resources area. Here you will be able to find the meeting room that I will already have set up for our virtual office hours appointment. The next portion of the syllabus provides a general overview of what this class is about and briefly describes what we will be learning about this semester. Here I articulate how this course is organized around the statement from the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle that happiness is equivalent to living and acting well. However, at present I'm not going to discuss this portion of the syllabus because I will dive into this topic in more depth in an upcoming video. So for the moment, we will set aside this broader discussion of the subject matter of this class and of why you should see what we will talk about this semester as something that warrants serious consideration and study. We will now turn to the topic of the learning format of the course and how learning will take place in this class. You can see on the syllabus it says that this course is taught in an online asynchronous learning format. But what does that mean exactly? Well, because this class is taught online, everything will happen virtually through our course Moodle page. There will never be any face-to-face physical class meetings. Furthermore, when we say that this class is asynchronous, this means that there will never be any virtual class meetings either. That is, there will not be a scheduled time each week where we will all meet with one another on Collaborate or Zoom or some other platform. Instead, there will be a set number of tasks that you need to complete each week, and those tasks will have deadlines, but you will get to choose within the structures of the deadlines when those tasks are completed. For example, each week there will be a number of pre-recorded lecture videos that you are required to watch. However, you will not be required to watch these at any particular time during the week. You will get to choose when doing so works best with your schedule. So, in this learning format, there are deadlines that assignments must be submitted by, but there is also considerable flexibility for students in terms of where and when learning actually takes place. So, what are the tasks that you are required to complete each week? For most weeks, you will need to complete readings, watch lecture videos, and then submit any required assignments. Furthermore, exactly what you need to do will be described in two different areas. First, you can find this information in the course schedule of the syllabus. In addition, you can also find this information in the weekly instruction documents that I will email every Monday and which are also posted to Moodle. Now let's begin by saying a few things about the readings. First, where can you find the required readings for this course? As stated on the syllabus, there is no textbook you are required to purchase for this class, so all readings will be made available through Moodle. Furthermore, you can see what you need to read by consulting the course schedule, which can be found in the last section of the syllabus. Currently, you are looking at the area for week 2 of the class. On the right-hand side of the box, there is a heading entitled Reading, and there it tells us that there is one reading you are required to complete this week. That reading is a selection from Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, Book 1, Chapters 1 through 5, 7, and 8 through 11, with Chapter 13 being optional. Now that you know how to find out what your reading assignment is, you need to know where you can find the actual readings themselves. In this case, we are looking for the reading for Week 2. So first, click on the Week 2 area of the class. Here you can scroll down and find a link to the reading. Your assignment in Week 2 would be to read chapters 1 through 5, 7, and 8 through 11 from this document. In many cases, there may be more than one reading to complete. For instance, in Week 3 there are 4 assigned readings, although one of these is optional. There are 3 selections from Aristotle and an optional article by Christian Miller. Unless some indication is given otherwise, you are required to read the entire document that is linked on Moodle. However, you will find that in most cases I have indicated that you are only required to read a specified portion of the document. We already saw this previously with the reading for Week 2, and Week 5 provides another example of this. Consider the first reading from John Stuart Mill's Utilitarianism. Here you are only required to read pages 63 to 66, and more specifically, paragraphs 1, 2, and 5 of Chapter 1. As we have already seen, some of the readings on the course schedule are labeled as optional. Again, in Week 3, the article from Christian Miller is designated in this way. Now, I will refer to the optional readings in my lectures, and by completing them, you can gain greater understanding of the material. However, if you are short on time, then the optional readings would be those you might choose to skip in order to focus your time and energy elsewhere. Once you have completed the reading for the week, the next step should be to watch the lecture videos that I have created to explain the content from the readings. Again, we will take Week 2 of the class as an example. After reading the selections from Aristotle, you are then required to watch lecture videos 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. And you can access these videos in two ways. First, you can watch the videos by using the links on the syllabus. For example, if you wanted to watch lecture 6, then you would simply click on the link provided here. This link will take you to YouTube, which is where you will watch all of the lecture videos. And there are a few points to make about these lectures. The first point is that you will want to make sure that you complete the readings before watching the lectures. The lectures do explain the content of the readings, in addition to expanding upon them and providing further context and discussion, but they explain the readings in a way that presupposes that you are already at least somewhat familiar with what is in the text. So, you will get the most out of the lectures, and the lectures will make the most sense to you if you do the reading first. The second point I want to make deals with the format of the lectures. As you can see from the lecture currently playing on your screen, the lectures consist of myself talking over a PDF document that I use as a visual aid. When it comes time to, for example, study for exams, you might find it useful to have access to this PDF document. One way that you can access it is through the description section of the YouTube video. This will give you access to all of the visuals that I use in my lectures, and from here you would be able to save the document to your computer and/or print it out as you wish. You can also access the lectures directly from Moodle. For Lecture 6, for instance, we would first enter the area for Week 2. Then, we can find Lecture 6 by simply scrolling down on this page. Before we move on, there's one further point I need to make about the course schedule and really the structure of the course as a whole. This class is being condensed into an 8-week format from the more traditional 16-week format. And what this means is that hypothetically, were one to cover all the same material in this class that would be covered in a normal 16-week class, then each week you would have to cover twice as much material. Therefore, there simply is no getting around the fact that this class will be conducted at an accelerated pace. You should, therefore, expect to devote a significant amount of time to this class each week, more time than you would expect in a 16-week class. To see this, let's have another look at Week 3. During this week, there are 3 required readings and 6 lecture videos. In a 16-week class format, this is normally the amount of material I would cover in a 2-week period of time. However, at the same time, I do think that for various reasons, holding strictly to the idea that each week of this class will be twice as dense as a single week of a 16-week class is not a good idea. And for that reason, in this course I have cut down the total amount of topics from what I would normally cover in Philosophy 301. And this means that in certain weeks of the class, you will be responsible for an amount of material that is really closer to what I would normally expect from a single week. For example, look at Week 4. Here, there are only 4 lecture videos. In planning out how you will attack this class, I would recommend the following. Take some time to look ahead on the course schedule for which weeks will have more content and which weeks will have less. And for the weeks that have less content, I would recommend doing your best to work ahead to make the heavier weeks a little more manageable. Still, I do want to emphasize again that there simply is no getting around the fact that this class will condense a large amount of material into a short amount of time. So that is something you should be prepared for from the outset of the class. The next section of the syllabus discusses the assignments that you are required to complete in this class. And there are 3 assignment categories that you will find in this course. There are the weekly assignments, which are comprised of discussion forums and quizzes, the response papers, and then the final exam. I am not going to say too much about these assignments in this particular video, and that is because I go into much more detail on these assignments in subsequent videos. One video on the weekly assignments, one on the response papers, and then one on the exams. However, there are a few points that I want to make about the assignments at this time and that you should have in your mind as we begin the course. First, how do I know when a given assignment is due? Well, you can find this information on the course schedule of the syllabus, and let's look at a few examples to help you understand this. For instance, let's first consider week 1 of the class. Now, for each week of the class, you can find the assignments you need to complete under the assignments area of the course schedule. And here you can see that Discussion Forum 1 and Quiz 1 are both due this week. In week 2, to take another example, we can see that Discussion Forum 2 and Response Paper 1 are due. And to consider one final example, the course schedule also shows that the final exam is due during week 8. Now I will say a few things about each type of assignment. Again, this will be rather brief, and more details about these specific assignments will be explained in subsequent videos. However, let's begin with the weekly assignments category. And remember, this category includes both discussion forums and quizzes. The content of the quizzes will depend on the quiz in question and is explained on the course schedule of the syllabus. However, it may be useful to say something further right now about what you should expect from the discussion forums. The purpose of the discussion forums is to allow you to discuss the material further by interacting with both your fellow classmates as well as your instructor. For each week of the class that has a discussion forum, which generally speaking is every week of the class except for the weeks during which you take an exam, you will be required to make 3 total posts. One of those posts is called a first post, and it is due by the end of the day on Thursday. In this post, you will be responding directly to a prompt about that week's material. The other 2 posts, the response posts, are posts that you make in response to what has been said by others. Now, there is of course much more to say here about how to participate in the discussion forums and how you'll be graded on that participation. But again, those points will be saved for the later video. Now, let's say a few things about the response papers. The response papers will require you, in at least 600 words, to first explain an argument from the reading and then to criticize that argument. There are 6 opportunities to complete response papers throughout the course of this semester, but you are only required to complete 4 of these, and in addition, you are not permitted to complete any more than 4. However, this flexibility in choosing which papers you will complete comes with the following caveat. You must complete at least 2 of the first 3 response paper opportunities. So that means by the time the deadline for response paper 3 has passed, and thus by the time the first half of the class has concluded, you should already have half of your required 4 response papers submitted. Again, this brief discussion leaves out many important details about this assignment, but this should give you a baseline, and those important details about how to complete the assignment will be covered in a later video. The final type of assignment in this class is the final exam. This exam is cumulative and covers the material learned in the previous 7 weeks. There will be 1 week of the class devoted to the exam. Now again, for the exact dates for the exam or any other assignment associated with your particular section of the course, please consult the course schedule posted to Moodle. However, in this specific case, we can see that the final exam will take place during week 8. As with the weekly assignments and the response papers, I will wait to explain most of the details about how to prepare for the exam, how to take the exam, and how I will grade your exam until a later video devoted specifically to those topics. However, there's one thing I want to make you aware of right from the beginning. The format of the exam you will take in this class will be the following. You will be required to submit a written response to 2 essay prompts that pertain to the course material. The prompts you will be required to answer will be randomly selected from a list of essays that you can find right now on the final exam study guide. And there are 2 places in which you can find this study guide. First, it can be found in the Course Information and Resources area of Moodle. You can also find the exam study guide in the area of the course page that is devoted to the final exam. Recall that in this case, the final exam will take place during week 8 of the course, so you can find the final exam study guide there. You will notice that the study guide has a complete list of possible essay questions that you could see on the final exam. The list of essay questions you see here is the exact list, word for word, from which the 2 questions you will be required to answer will be selected. Now, what does this mean? Well, one thing it means is that you could begin preparing for the exams very early. I would suggest checking back to the study guide regularly, perhaps at the end of each week of the class, to see if we have covered the material from any of the questions. Then I would recommend going ahead and beginning to work on writing out your responses. And there are really 2 advantages to doing this. First, by doing this, you will begin working on your responses to the questions when the material is most fresh in your mind. Second, if you begin working on your responses early, then you can have a rough draft of all of your essays ready by the time we get to the exam week. That means that during that week, you would only need to proofread and maybe expand upon points that could be explained further. And this will make exam week much less stressful for you and very likely improve the quality of your work. Finally, I want to emphasize, and I will emphasize this again in the video that discusses the exams because it is so important, is that it will be vital for you to have your responses to all the essay prompts completely written out before starting the exam program on Moodle. That is because once you open that program, you will only have 20 minutes to submit your answers. And 20 minutes will certainly not be enough time to completely answer the essay prompts. This is something you can probably determine for yourself just by looking at the exam prompt that is currently on your screen. And in fact, the entire point of setting the exam up this way is to make it so that you have to have your answers written out in advance. Therefore, it is very much to your advantage, and in fact even crucially necessary, that you begin to work on your responses well in advance of submitting your exam. To put it bluntly, it is highly unlikely that you will be able to do well on the exam or really even pass the exam if you do not have your essays written out in advance of beginning the exam program. For now, that will suffice in terms of explanations of the exams, and again, more will be said later in a subsequent video that focuses specifically on guidelines and requirements for the final exam. To close this video, I will say a few things about how your grade will be calculated and also offer a few thoughts on my approach to grading. Your final grade in this class will be calculated according to the following percentages. The weekly assignments, which includes the discussions and quizzes combined, will be worth 25% of your grade. The 4 response papers combined will be worth 50% of your grade, and then the final exam will be worth the last 25% of your grade. Your grade will then be converted into a final letter grade based upon the grading scale you see on your screen. 90% and above is an A, 80 to 89% is a B, etc. It may happen that at the end of the semester, you have a grade that is close to being in the next highest grade bracket. For example, suppose at the end of the semester you had an 88% or a 79%. Would I consider bumping up your grade to an A or B respectively? I do consider doing this based upon your participation in class. If a student is within 2 percentage points of the next highest grade bracket and has made consistent and substantial contributions to the class in terms of participation, then I would consider raising that student's grade to the next highest letter. But you might ask, this is an online class, so what does participation mean in this context? What participation largely refers to is your engagement in the discussion forums. If you consistently make substantive contributions to the discussions that actively seek to push the conversation forward in new and interesting ways, then you would be a prime candidate to have a borderline grade raised to the next highest level. However, this is not the only thing I take into account when determining participation. Participation can also take the form of reaching out to the instructor for help when necessary, taking an active interest in your learning, and showing consistent improvement over the course of the semester. This last point in particular applies to the response paper assignments. Students who make clear improvement on their work over the semester will also be candidates for having their borderline grades increased. Now, suppose you miss an assignment or you miss a deadline. For example, maybe you miss the deadline for a response paper that you need to complete, or maybe you are not able to turn in the exam on time. Will it be possible to make up that assignment? It will be possible in some cases, provided the student has an excused reason for missing the assignment. In order for some reason to qualify as excused, the following 2 conditions must be met. First, the student must notify the instructor no later than 24 hours after the deadline of the missed assignment has passed. So, for example, suppose you missed the Friday night deadline for the exam. In order to meet this condition, you would have to inform me via email that you missed the assignment no later than the end of the day on Saturday. Second, the student must have a reason for missing the assignment that the instructor finds excusable. An example of a reason that the instructor would likely find excusable is something like a death in the family, illness, or some other sort of emergency. Examples of reasons the instructor would not find excusable are that the student overslept or simply forgot. In the case that a student does have an excused reason for missing some assignment, then other arrangements can be made for making up that work. Finally, speaking more generally, the most important thing to keep in mind here is that if you run into any difficulties, that you should not hesitate to contact me. I really am willing to be flexible and accommodating for students who are willing to be upfront and communicate about what is going on in their personal situation. Finally, I think it is important for me to say a few things about grading. It is not uncommon for students to find this class to be more difficult than they anticipated. To some extent, this should not be surprising. Philosophy is a difficult subject. The ideas can at times be difficult to grasp at first until we take the time to think about them carefully. And demonstrating your understanding of these ideas requires the ability to communicate clearly through writing, which itself is a skill that must be practiced and learned. So, I would not say that I am a hard grader exactly, but I do strive to make sure that the grade a student receives accurately reflects the quality and accuracy of their work. So, this means you should not expect to receive an excellent grade if you did not demonstrate excellent understanding of the material. To further illustrate this, consider what attitude it would be rational to have toward getting a C on some assignment. In my experience, it seems it is becoming increasingly more common for students to perceive a C grade as if it's a failing grade. But of course, that is not true. A C grade is really just meant to convey that the student put forth an average performance. The student did not excel, and we might not even say the student's work was good, which is what I would consider to deserve the grade of a B, but the student did not completely miss the mark either. So especially early in this class, if you receive a C on an assignment, your takeaway should not be that you failed, but that your performance was average and that there is room to improve as the semester goes on. What this entails is that if you want to receive an excellent grade in this class, if you want to receive an A, then you will have to demonstrate mastery of the material. When I grade your assignments, I do not begin from the starting assumption that the student necessarily understands the material. Rather, I look for evidence from the student's work that he or she has that understanding. So in order to achieve an A, a student will need to make it inescapably clear to me that he or she has a high-level understanding of the relevant concepts, ideas, and arguments. It may also be useful to address some of the root causes for why students sometimes enter this course thinking it will be easy. Sometimes it is assumed that this class must be easy because it is an introductory course in ethics. That is, it is designed to be a first course someone would take in studying the philosophical discipline of ethics. But all introductory means is that it introduces the most basic concepts of the discipline, the first things one should know before studying that discipline further. That doesn't necessarily mean those concepts will be simple or easy. For example, nobody would assume that a class entitled Introduction to Astrophysics or Introduction to Quantum Mechanics would be easy. It is also sometimes assumed that this class will be easy because it is often taken as a general education course or requirement. However, there's nothing about the concept of general education that implies the class will be easy either. General education simply means a kind of education not tailored specifically towards some practical outcome or career path. It is the type of education you undergo to become a more well-rounded person who is familiar with subjects like art, history, literature, and, of course, philosophy. You do not necessarily study these subjects because you want to make a career out of them, although making a career out of them is possible. But the reason you study them primarily is because a well-educated citizen who is capable of thinking critically and understanding the broader cultural context in which she is placed needs some understanding of these things. So general education just denotes an education whose value cannot be reduced to practical utility. But again, nothing about that means that such an education will be simple or easy. Now, I do not say any of this to scare you, but only to give you a realistic sense of what to expect in this class. While I will hold a high standard of grading and evaluation, I also want to do whatever I can to help enable you to meet that standard. So, if you have any questions about the material, if you want to improve your work, or need help or clarification about any other facet of the class, then I do encourage you to contact me, and I will of course be happy to assist you.